How about my dearest YouTube friends? Today we are in a new video, friends. Season 26 of Battlegrounds has begun, in which I am recording this a little earlier in the pre-season because I have already been able to test the nodes. Therefore, I am going to bring you which are the best attackers and best defenders for this season, which in reality it is a fairly open season and we have many defenders and attackers that may be possible in. This route to victory is actually worth improving the attackers. We simply have to use the eternal ones because they are going to give us a series of benefits. Guillotine, King Group, Vision, Hulka. The Delders are worth less, but the Deles are worth as much. Are you going to put it in yes or yes? So in this case, I have not included all the Deles, therefore you could also be using it because it is good for us, because basically it is going to put neutralization, it is going to put tenacity on each Deles character. This is where the important thing comes in. What are the nodes that these defenders have on the road to victory? Well, it has a node that is a little annoying, which is Fly Fight, and that is that every 12 seconds the defender obtains an unstoppable improvement for 4 seconds if the attacker is far from the defender. When this deactivates the attacker, we get unstoppable instead, so it's a very simple node, so that at the same time it's quite annoying. We have to be far from the defender so that we can get that unstoppable and not the defender, because we remember how it is. And the defender speaks, you will be wasting those seconds. Then we also have flexibility every time the defender receives a disadvantage. Stun reduces the duration of these warp disadvantages by 20%. Therefore, stoppages must be avoided at all costs. Finally, it has a life damage, and we start with our Relic Spirit indicator at 50% to be able to use it more quickly. I also have to highlight then that the relic throughout your DEC has to be activated because it will help you avoid that. Is that stop worth avoiding the stop? So now you do, folks. Let's start with the top attackers for this season of Battlegrounds. Okay friends, we are already in the top characters to be able to include in this season. We are going to classify them by Gautier, semi, and usable. Let's remember that in reality, in this non-season, the doddles matter more. But I already tell you that here there are a large number of characters that you can include. That is why I have made a selection. Okay, in this case here, I have highlighted the characters, for example, like Torcha or Mana, which for me is a semi because they are characters that have damage from a distance. Therefore, we may be doing damage if we need to touch him as long as he becomes unstoppable. For example, we are backward. That's why these types of characters are important. The Human Torch in the end continues. It is a 6-star locked character, but it is very good for you to explode any type of character with that Nova Beta Flame. Ravil is one of the best, because let's remember that he has that ability to be able to remove the unstoppable from the other characters, therefore the node. We should take Etaravil, and we are finally going to see him shine in a season of Battlegrounds. Then friends, we have noticed that for me in this case it goes to Semi, since it is a pretty good character to use, but it is true that it requires being a little more on top of the defender. Black Panther Civil War, sorry. He is another Ghostier character that in the end is very easy to develop simply with stops with strong blows pulling, then continued in the over attack. You can be doing a lot of damage and you can end the fights very quickly. In this case, Cosmic Rider, as always, is going to be a very good option for Battagons. You kill any character easily and quickly. Give it another case, then in this case it is not so good for this node, but with that massive damage it has that we actually have analysis in the channel, it is totally worth it. Dr. Dunn goes to Gautier since we can avoid the appearance of that unstoppable in opponents, and on top of that, with that passive stun that this character has, he can be helping us. In this goal, he dominated more of the same, a pretty top character who, since he does damage from a distance through that 2 super attack with those guns, those 2 super attack that he has, is worth it. In this case, Dust goes up, a character that will also serve you as much for defense that we will talk about later as for. The Scorpion attack happens to him the same as with Antor Somana, a 6-star blocked character but who is still totally lethal thanks to the damage he has while being far from that of the defender. In this case you can use Red Guard because in this case we put the disadvantages that prevent them from getting that unstoppable. Therefore Red Guardian, you can use it. The only thing is locked from 6 stars, but it is true that it has totally massive damage. Guardian in this case go down a little too. He is a character that is easy to use, that has totally massive damage, but I consider that there are better options. In this case, Guillotine Deadless goes to the top completely, because in the end he is a deadless character, in which we have talked about the attacker node. Well, it benefits him, so he goes to Aribita. G Monkey is another character that the same thing happens to him as Scorpion, and another is Manos. They are characters that have brutal damage due to critical hit, and apart from bleeding disadvantages, therefore he deserves to be in semi. Hood, more of the same, it goes up, and on top of that we can put the disadvantages so that that unstoppable does not activate. Hulking, more of the same, a character also quite top that we don't need to be close to do totally brutal damage, just hit block, 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 reach the super attack. We pull and unleash 2 Furies to do great damage. Jack with Lantern happens to him, more of the same. He is a character that nourishes himself through disadvantages in his damage, and it does not mean that we are close to the defender, therefore it can come pretty well. Yugarnat, as always, is a piece of beast that also has the ability, so to speak, to deliver a strong blow and avoid that unstoppable. Therefore, we will give you a cancellation and you will not be activated to use it anymore. Of the same, he is a character that cancels that unstoppable, therefore it may be quite good for us if in case we do not manage well to be away from the defender when the unstoppable ends and it is placed on the defender, then we can throw Super Take 1 at him and we cancel it and turn it into an incineration disadvantage. Lamole may be helping us, although he is a character that in this case I am going to lower a little, because in the end he is more of a defender than an attacker, but it doesn't hurt to have him in your deck, because in the end he is a very top defender as long as he has great security. We'll talk about that later, but escaping as an attacker may also be serving you. Massacre is another character that does totally massive damage, which in this case does not look so strong in this season due to the unstoppable and so on. Mr. Sinister is another character that the same thing happens to him as other characters. In the end it looks very strong. Of the disadvantages, stops, strong blows, and in this case we have to act very quickly with this character, because let's remember that those stops may be bothering us, that reduction in duration, they may be bothering us in the fight, or they may be bothering us, more of the same. A character who feeds through disadvantages has brutal damage from disadvantages and may be helping us. Ocelot goes up completely due to that damage that it has as a disadvantage. So many people will already have it in rank 4, as is my case for example. Problem in this case, it goes down a little because it is another character that is noticeable through the disadvantages, the failure and so on, but it does not remove it or unstoppable, because we left everything in semi. We have Quick Gilbert who goes up completely, because in the end it is a character that we have to be developing to put that disadvantage that makes it remove it. The unstoppable to the others, to the other defenders. So Wisever has a very beast damage on top of it with blows, weak medium, medium medium, weak medium, that is at the end Chris Silver's combo, and then when you reach Sopetake 2, half weak, half detonated all those lashes, you pull Sopetake 2 and you're going to see how you kill any character. Screen goes up, which is a character that has many disadvantages and that do not remove unstoppable, but he may still be using you due to that massive damage that he has due to bleeding disadvantages. We see Sangsi, who is another character who slows down the opponent, therefore we are going to remove that unstoppable from the defender. So it remains in Gozier, Satramate, the same thing, because we are going to prevent one with the atrophy, in that that unstoppable lasts much less. Therefore we are going to generate more gaps to hit the defender. Ulcadel is more of the same thing, another that leaves many disadvantages, and that on top of that, just like the Guillot has SD influenced by the attacker node, Soccer also serves you, because in this case it has a lot of attack force through blows. Super attacks 1 are unblockable. In the end, over attack 2, that passive stun that cannot be reduced, and you will see the strength that the Silk character has. In this case, it is going to go down a little bit, because it is true that it is a total of the disadvantages, but it is necessary to be very above it, so that you do not lose those loads of vulnerability and do massive damage to this character. Spider-Ham also goes down a little bit, because in the end, this is due to damage caused by electric needles. Therefore, it comes well, because you have to stay away from the defender and just let him throw the super attacks to do damage with electric needles, and that would be it. Sarspo, more of the same. In this case, it is a little worse than Spearhand, because in the end, it has to be closer to the Japanese defender. It disadvantages those strong blows. That little one copies power and throws super attack 2. So the Dendels, that for me, it is one of the best characters, because in the end, those super attacks mean that you have to be far from the defender. Therefore, if you throw it and that little unstoppable wheel, well, you end up getting the unstoppable both super attack 1 and super attack 2. So it is a piece of character that also has totally massive damage, and for good. We have Titania, who is another piece of character who in the end becomes unstoppable, unblockable, indestructible. Therefore, it may be working quite well for us with any defender character. And finally, we have Vox, who is a character who also feeds off of disadvantages. Therefore, it suits us quite well for this fight, and in this way, the best attackers would remain for this 26th season of Battlegrounds. Let's go with the defenders. Okay friends, and now we are with the best defenders for this season 26, and we start with a Sword Man who in this case we are going to raise to semi. In the end, he is a character that becomes unstoppable in itself and may be bothering us badly from the future. As always, he is a pain in the balls as a defender, and I already tell you that these characters in the end are quite global because we do not have a node as such that enhances a class or that enhances some type of ability. So here are all the characters that are quite difficult to make. For example, Arcade is a God Tier character that will eventually generate automatic locks. Atuma is a character that will always be a top defender, just like the Bishop, who in this case drops a little, but since he has his character as an attacker as well as we have seen before, he can serve you quite well for the Beck, the Black Panther, Civil War, another defensive character that we cannot even make a stop to because there will be retro stun and Bolsa may be bothering us quite a bit, and another character that is Gothier in defense, Centrienda, who in this case drops a little as a defender just because they have more strength as an attacker and they don't shine as much with the Nefaria. He goes to semi at the end with that evasion, with those furies that Unstoppable has. He may be bothering you in the parallel of the node. Okay, you may be quite bothered by Daffler, another character who goes semi as a defender and as an attacker is also quite good. The same thing happens to him as Bishop. The character is quite good, but even with those little stripes, he may be bothering you and enter a couple of knocks in the attack. Domino in this case has to be at 200 to be a great defense. And in the end, you can't say much about this character that we no longer know. Arena more about the same character that is not worth it for attack or defense. So Dust always has to be in Tubek, Avon and Mahu, another character that comes up completely that may be bothering you if you don't give him an opponent that removes him, for example, that ability that he has from the failure, and you can be very bothering. So she goes up just like Enchantre, who is the defender by nature, who is very, very fucked up, and on top of that, now that they are giving her the A-Tour node. Understanding that its duration is being taken away since some spell is going to cost us a lot to remove. We see Galan, who in this case lowers his potential defender a little, that the Gladiator rises because in the end he also becomes unstoppable with super attack 1, so he can rise us, serve us quite well, like Gorg, who in this case generates that fury and may be bothering us. Havoc is also another character to take into account because if you don't have a counter character directly from him who has a robustness that may be suffering, that's enough. We have Hulk, another character who is a good defender, who in this case is an attacker and defender, but in this meta debate that shines more for us as a defender thanks to the fact that those furies are generated and in the end it is unstoppable that he is going to be scratching for a few seconds. We have Hulkry, another character who may be serving us both in attack and defense, and in the end he is a character who becomes indestructible and may be bothering us a lot, and on top of that he is a quite aggressive character. Jessica Jones, for me, is another character that is going to be GO tier, especially if you have her 7 stars. She becomes unstoppable and blockable. You can't pull super attacks against her, so pretty good. Killmonger is another pretty top character as long as you have it doubled by 200 so that damage reverberation is totally beast, and it will be a little complicated for you if it becomes unstoppable. Kindle works quite well for us also in defense. In the end, it is a quite powerful mystic. Kimping in this case goes down a little bit because in the end, as in this goal, there are no disadvantages then. This one doesn't have to be removed because it always goes up. It's always going to be a top defender. Ela Mole, another top defender that in this case comes quite well because since it becomes unstoppable in itself when you escape a couple of taps with the rocky loads that he has apart with the node can be bothering us a lot, just like Maestro, who in the end is always a top defender, although many counters have already come out for him. Medusa is another character who is quite top in defense since he generates those furies, those automatic blocks, and may be bothering us with the node of the priceless Mr. Sinister, as always quite lethal as we put many disadvantages on him, and as he goes, he develops, and from a super attack 1, you are quite dead with that pain that Nike Fury has, another character who is quite top, that since you don't see it with a direct counter, you may be having a pretty bad time. Holmes Load at the end is another character who is a god tier by nature in defense. and at most in attack. It may also be working for you, and many people may already have it in rank 4, so be very careful with it. Don't forget to ban it on the deck or everything in another character that is quite top than in defense, which in the end forces us not to do dexterity. Therefore we are going to be close to it and it is unstoppable. Are you going to act on her? We have Prowler, who in this case lowers his potential as a defender a little compared to all the beasts we have above. Red School, more of the same with that automatic lock that may be working very well, and on top of that you have to be forcing to throw that strong blow. Therefore we have to be close to him, because otherwise the stop is not going to act on us due to his snake skills. As always, a top defender, we cannot say much more about the character, and on top of that he is unstoppable, and that we cannot stop him increases the strength of this character. Thanos Daedalus also goes up top defender, top attacker. We can't say much about the character. Very top boys in this case. Its use in defense lowers a little. We leave it in usable. Warlock goes up to semi. For me, it is a character that is always going to be a defender. It's quite bad thanks to the fact that it takes away your regeneration, it gives you DU, it gives you degeneration, it heals itself and has a lot of resistance. And finally, Huepo NX that goes as always to the top. If you don't know how to fight against it, you can be having a pretty bad time with that unstoppable blocker that he has that already becomes unstoppable in itself. Well, imagine with the node. So nothing, friends, because with this, the best defenders and attackers would be left for this season. Debates at 26. I hope you liked the Sugi video if you're not there, and see you in other videos.